Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. All right, everybody, welcome back to the next episode of the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and I am so thrilled to be here with Anne Shoemaker. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for setting aside the time. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So I like to start off every episode with an intention. And Anne is a career strategist and executive coach, and I will let her give a little bio here in just a sec, and then we can dive right in. But what I am so genuinely excited to talk about today is the corporate life for women and trajectory. I want to make sure that all the corporate women out there feel seen and that we just have a really honest conversation about what it's like to be in corporate. I, started my career at McCann. I've worked at all the big ad agencies, came back to Cincinnati and have worked at the big corporations here. And my last corporate gig that I just got out of corporate, 4 years ago, maybe. And that was at Deloitte. So truly, I am like a corporate girl that just hung up the hat. And this is a space that means a ton to me. I've loved it, but I've also, I've walked the walk. So this is for all my girls out there who have walked it with me and for everyone else out there listening that is still in the corporate space. We see you and can't wait to talk about you today because your journey is really important, especially to Anne. So as I mentioned, Anne is a career strategist and executive coach. But Anne, would you mind just giving us a quick bio, anything about you? We'd just love to know who we're listening to.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's start with a little bit of geography. So as I mentioned earlier to you before we started recording, I'm originally from Lexington, Kentucky. So for any of your listeners who are local to Cincinnati, I'm regionally from the same area. And I think it's important to call that out because Kentucky specifically has a reputation in our country, and some of it well-earned, and some of it for great things, and some of it for maybe not so great things. Mm-hmm. And the reason I bring that up is I now live in North Carolina, but being from a state that oftentimes can take a lot of grief is kind of a parallel to my story of being a woman and trying to break through in certain areas, whether that was athletics or whether that was in the corporate world. Sometimes if you're from Kentucky, you have to prove yourself a couple times harder. And I think there's a parallel to being a woman in corporate and having to prove yourself a little bit harder than maybe some of your peers from more recognizable or larger areas are. So just to set the scene, I'm originally from, So I'm originally from Kentucky. I moved to North Carolina, went to school at Wake Forest where I played soccer. After that, I went to Washington, D.C. for a year, worked at a large consulting firm, kind of similar to maybe some of your background, lived in Sweden for a couple of years and have lived in North Carolina for the last 20 or so years. So in terms of a chronology of kind of geography, that's a little bit about my story. I've got a background professionally that is one part nonprofit and the other part for-profit, which includes startups, large corporate, and now my own small business for the last 4 years. Very similar to your
very cool. Also, so I had read that you were a soccer player, professional soccer player.
Yes, I played in Sweden briefly. It was certainly a different culture, but it was fun to have that experience. I loved it.
I love that. And I think so many of the lessons that we learn in sports translate so well to the corporate world. And I also know that, from all the people who play at the collegiate level, that's also a big recruiting thing for corporations where they see that level of discipline and they're like, we want that. And I don't know. So for all the parents out there going to all the games, if your kids are still loving it, lean into it because God, there's a lot of life skill that comes out of playing such a high level discipline sport.
Absolutely. There's all the life skills. And then there's also, it's such a common ground in
Yeah.
terms of networking. I think the first 3 jobs that I ever had, in fact, I'm sure of it, came from a shared understanding between me and the person interviewing me about their collegiate, either sports experience or
Cool.
that they knew someone. So it's all the skills, but also so much room to talk about experiences and to have common ground with other people professionally. It's really been fun to
Oh,
share my experience with others.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. I recently turned my basement into a home gym, literally all from Amazon, and I could not be more obsessed. I got an elliptical that I actually love, a reformer that I'm obsessed with and is saving my life, and all my decor that makes it not just a home gym, but feel bougie. I mean, we're talking wallpaper accent walls and a chandelier without breaking the bank. Now I have space where me and my 4 kids can all work out together. I love Amazon because I furnish or style my home in a way that feels like such a reflection of me without having to break the bank. If you're like me and get a little bit sad, okay, maybe more than a little bit sad, when there's no package at the door, then you are my people. Also, I think we need help. But until then, visit amazon.com/shop/write your own story. Or even better, click the link in the show notes and shop all my favorite finds in fashion, beauty, home decor, organization, and more. From my cart to yours, these are the treasures you don't want to miss. So you are also a mom, yes?
Yes, that's right. I have a 13 and 15-year-old.
Amazing. Okay. So, this is for the women out there who, hopefully can see themselves reflected in either you or I as we talk about what it's like in the corporate landscape, how motherhood can kind of play a part in that journey, how those different facets all sort of play off each other in terms of beauty as well as complication and just how life is going to life when you're in the corporate world. Okay,
That's right.
so what I would love is, so it sounds like the women that you work with often are in these corporate roles, whether they, and feel free to elaborate on this, but for those who are sort of mid-career and are, kind of either evaluating how to move up, over, out, etc. But let's quickly level set of what are you seeing that the landscape is like for women in corporate right now?
Yeah, well, I think, so we're coming out of this massive global pandemic, right? And
Yeah.
I think that so many of us, in the midst of all of the disruption and despair that came along with that, I think there was also a good bit of hope that now that, with so much of the professional workforce working remotely and this clash of who we are as a person clashing, suddenly everybody's in everybody else's living rooms.
Yeah,
And so I think
literally.
yes. And so I think there, at least I experienced, I know some of my clients experienced a whole lot of hope that now there was such transparency about what it means to be a working parent, mother or father, right? But
Yeah,
in this case, we'll
truly.
talk about women, that, there's kids coming in with interruptions and we have to leave to do such and such. And so I think there was a lot of hope for change and
Yeah.
understanding and for an increase in flexibility. And I think, you know, 4 years out, 3 years out from the end of the 3 years out from the end of the pandemic, like in some cases, we've borne the benefit of that. And in other
Yeah.
cases, nothing has
Oh my God, is
changed.
it happening again?
So
Do you
no,
hear?
that's,
Okay. I was
well,
like,
and my son just walked in.
oh, hey,
Sorry.
how's it going? Don't sweat it.
I think that
All
was
good.
his bike.
Oh, nice.
Let me,
Right. But I mean, okay.
let me,
Yeah. Want to start
so
over?
sorry about that. Well, no,
Oh,
that's
please don't be sorry.
so,
Okay. So when we think about women who in the corporate world, the pandemic hit, everyone is kind of working from their living room in this notion of hope.
yes. So I think there was hope that either there would be a full-time remote workforce, like the whole professional sphere. Obviously, there's the service industry. I don't want to disregard that. But in terms of the professional workforce, that there would just be this doors, thrown wide open for people to work from home and have the flexibility that a lot of women have always wanted. And I think in some industries or with some companies that has happened. And with others, we've seen the return to work. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that if I had to say there's kind of a thread amongst all of my corporate clients, it's this confusion of haven't they seen, doesn't the corporate world understand all of these demands on my time? And why am I now being asked to come back to work when I've been working remotely successfully for 2 years? Or,
Yes.
why am I being asked to do all of these things? Didn't we just have this huge transparency moment?
Mhm.
And, I guess what I'm saying is there's been mixed results. Some
Absolutely.
corporations are changing and some aren't. And
Yeah.
that's frustrating and confusing, I think, for a lot of women.
Do we have any idea what's driving? And I'm like, just categorically, I'm sure it's different by corporation. What's driving the return to the office?
You know, the
What's
the
the word on the
skeptic
street? Yeah.
the skeptic in me says that it has a lot to do with this performative work, that we
Mm,
don't believe, that we don't trust our workforce, and that we don't believe that they're working, and we don't believe they're accountable unless we actually see their butts and seats.
yep.
And
Yep.
where I go back to is that's not a workforce problem, that's a performance management problem. And if we
Amen.
don't have metrics or something that says this is what shows on paper that this is a good, productive worker, that we're getting the outputs, that our input of cash,
Yes.
where our investment is, where we're making our investment in that workforce, that all has to do with performance management, not to do with the
Butts and
workforce.
seats. Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that. It's like truly, I always say that if you need a high speed, high volume, complicated task, like hire a mom because
yes,
we juggle all the things. And what
right,
motivates, I find, amongst my colleagues and peers, what motivates us the most is the flexibility to show up in all aspects of our life. And so if
yes,
I get to work hard in my health, in my ability to show up as a mom, I'm going to work my butt off for the company that allows me to do that.
right,
And I'm probably going to overperform. It's almost like the notion of like unlimited vacation. No one ever takes it,
right.
but man, are they all in.
Right,
Yeah.
100%. And I
Yeah.
think that it's important to remember the context of the ideal worker. We had the assembly lines of the 1910s, 1920s, where people were going to work in factories and things. And then we reached like the 1940s and 50s, and people in a professional sense were going to work and sitting at typewriters, right? And they had to be there because it's a 50-pound typewriter. And yet these days, we all walk around with a typewriter, a computer, a PC in our back pocket. There
Right.
is not, in most cases, again, service industry notwithstanding, there is not in most cases a business need for us to go to the office to sit at the 50-pound typewriter because that's where the typewriter lives. We
Yeah.
walk
Right.
around with the internet in our pockets. We don't need to be there in person. Now, there's some situations where it's a creative environment or there's innovation and we all benefit from being in person and having 6 to 8 hours together to really deconstruct a problem and fix it together. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
discount that,
Yeah.
but day in and day out, we have the tools for a flexible workforce, and we have the proof by way of the pandemic of the need for flexibility amongst some of our most productive workers, women.
Absolutely.
Why are we holding on to this ideal worker 9 to 5 notion, which, by the way, is not complementary to the school day, right?
No, literally not. No. What about there are so many, I'm a single parent. There are so many single
Yes.
parents out there, men and women, who are sole providers who, like, at the end of the day, they still have to get their child educated so that they too can
Right.
lead a fulfilling, profitable, show up for their life. It blows my
Yes.
mind. So, is this really like, I think one of the things that we had talked about off camera that I'm really curious to talk about is this sort of like mid career moment where you're finding a lot of your clients and this sort of, like lack of the ability to figure out where to go next, or this sort of feeling of loss. Is it because of the landscape change, the dabble into flexibility, and now it's being pulled away from them again? What's driving that?
Gosh, I don't know that I have the answer necessarily of what's driving it, but I can say some factors that I see,
Sure.
and that
Yeah.
is that when we're coming out of, if we are lucky enough to go to college, come out of college, early 20s, and have this vision for the life we want to build and the career we want. And so we work, and maybe we, get married or not, and start a family or not. And we make all these choices where we have agents, we have more and more responsibility, and we have more and more agency over the responsibilities that we've chosen
Mm-hmm.
in our personal life. And the one place where, maybe around 38, 40, 42, where we realize we don't have agency all of a sudden is in our careers, in our work
Yeah.
lives. We do have, I should say, we do have agency over the choices that we make, but we can there's a friction that comes when these responsibilities that we have in our personal life, which, by the way, birthing the next generation of humans, I mean, that's important work.
Right.
Raising them, also important work. So we have these
Absolutely.
responsibilities, and yet sometimes we don't have the flexibility or the understanding from our employers that we believe we deserve or that we are capable of. And I'm
Yes.
talking in terms of independence and autonomy, to say, hey, field day only happens from 11 to 12, but I can get this report done from 6 to 7 a.m. in the morning, or 7 to 8 p.m. at night, or whenever else. But there's
Yeah.
only one pocket of time where I can show up for my children or for the community, which also benefits the community. So
Absolutely.
I think sometimes there's this desire from society to look at people as like their work lives and their home lives, but it's just one life.
It is
And we
just
have
one
to
life.
figure out how to make it work. And so there becomes this sense of disillusionment, I think, around 38, 40, 42, midlife, where people say, I wanted all these things and now I have them to some extent, but I'm not so sure they're serving me. I'm not
Yeah.
so sure that that they're working together. So there becomes this lack of clarity around, I thought I wanted this, but it doesn't feel great. So what is it that I really do want? And a lot of introspection and reflection can come from those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so for all the women out there who are listening right now, who are sitting in the corporate seats, whether virtually or being forced to go back to the office, and are having these moments where they're like, okay, I have more and more responsibility at home as well as work. What are some great sort of reflection points, or how are you coaching women through these moments? How can we help the women that are listening?
Yeah, so I have lots of resources that I use when I'm working with women on the challenge of finding that clarity that they're looking for. One thing that I would say is, kind of start to take inventory and get really good at noticing how you're feeling around certain specific tasks. Like, for instance, we might say, oh, I'm feeling this lack of clarity in my life. And so we've just kind of painted it with this big, broad brushstroke. But really, when we break out in the day, it's like, I do feel clear about my personal values, or I do feel clear that I like this industry that I'm working in. But what I find is when I'm on these calls, certain calls with my coworkers or certain calls with customers or whatever, that it just doesn't rev my engines the way I thought it would. So
Mm,
really getting specific and discreet about when we're feeling great and energized. I like to use energy as a benchmark.
yeah.
What is bringing your energy up and what is draining your energy? And just
Uh,
starting to notice that. What tasks, what interactions, what people are pushing your energy up and down. So energy is one thing that we can look at. Um, we can also look at what are people coming to you and asking you questions about that get you excited?
oh, cool.
When do you feel like you're of service? When do you feel like, oh, I can't wait to have lunch with so and so because I want to make sure that I impart this, advice, or that I ask this question. So thinking about service or contribution. When do
Hmm.
you feel like you're making a really valuable, meaningful contribution? Because that usually fills us up too. So just
Absolutely.
taking inventory
Yeah.
of our experiences.
I feel like, too, those things that people tend to come to you for are really your areas of expertise, whether you are super aware of it or not. So that's often a good indicator as well. I've found that a lot of women that I'm having this conversation with love the mentoring, love the relationship side, um, and are either A, really sick of the category that they're in, and they're like, I'm done with this particular category, or that they just, are kind of stuck, and whether it be under a boss that, continues to strip away autonomy, or, doesn't see their value, or just, I don't know, again, based on your sort of like energy measures, which I really love. And I think women are so in tune to their own energy. And it's such a good exercise for us to pause and tap back into it, because so often, especially in the corporate world, we're just feeling like we have to work harder, smarter, faster all the time. And if you can
Right.
pause and check in, it is just so valuable. But
Yes.
how are you helping women find their voice to then, or let's say, okay, so let's say you find buckets that you're like, this is really draining my energy. Now, what do you do?
Right. Well, I think you continue chipping away at the thing until you can get to the very heart of it. So it
Mm,
might be, it's not the industry, it's not the employer, it's the boss, or it's the team, or it's this project. Just this project is draining, this
mm,
customer is draining. So really making sure that you've asked all the questions till you get down to the root of where the energy suck is coming, or where the energy boost is. Like, if you might say,
mm-hmm,
my job's fine, if there's nothing wrong with it, it's adequate, it's perfectly adequate, right? It's
mm-hmm.
satisfying, it's checking the boxes, but I really want my energy to be feeling, higher and more fulfilled, or whatever. So when we get to some clarity around those things, I think it's important to, first of all, make sure you have someone in your corner to walk the walk with you. I think sometimes when we're going through a transformation,
Mm-hmm.
um, it can feel isolating. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely. Yeah.
if we're, the metamorphosis from who we were maybe in
Mm-hmm.
our 20s to who we're becoming in our 40s. Sometimes, yes, we're walking around in the same skin suit, but
Mm-hmm.
everything inside is different. And so it's nice to
Absolutely.
have a coach, a mentor, a friend, somebody who can kind of witness the transformation with you. And also so that you can kind of have some milestones that you can see and say, remember, 2 years ago when I was telling you I wanted to take that one class? Oh my gosh, look at this now. I've made this transition and now I'm certified in whatever. And to kind of witness that journey, I think is important, and can be empowering for us not to feel so alone on that,
Yeah.
change.
So let's walk through some of the things that could be energy sucking people right now. And I love the kind of set up the structures of find yourself some support, whether it be a mentor, friend, coach, or all of the above. The
Mhm.
notion of maybe putting some milestones in place once you've identified what are the things that are really like draining you and what are the things that are lifting you up. So how do you lean more into those? And how do you, is it just the project and you just have to put your head down and finish the project and keep your eye on the prize, that like once that one's done, like you can put more of your energy into the things that fill your bucket. But okay, so let's say one of the common themes is, let's say you have a boss that is just draining you. What are some of the coaching tips that you give for women when they're up against something like this?
Yeah, so I think one of the tactics that I like to use is the facts versus FUD, or fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So this is a
Mm.
very straightforward tool. So you just
Mm-hmm.
take a sheet of paper, draw a vertical line down the middle. On one
Mm-hmm.
side are the facts, and the other side is the fear, uncertainty, or doubt. Which it could also be, anger or anything else you want to put in there. But it's usually a fear, uncertainty, or doubt. So if you have a
Yeah.
boss that's for some reason is draining you, I'd say get really clear on, is it the work itself? Like, what did they factually ask you to do? Did they
Mm-hmm.
factually ask you to do something at 11 o'clock at night and they needed it by 8 a.m.? Like, that's a fact.
Yeah.
And, the way that I was feeling about it was, mad, frustrated, not enough time, all of the different things.
Yeah.
So separating the emotion of the situation from the fact of the situation, so that then you can articulate factually to your supervisor, to your boss, like, here's what happened and here's how I was feeling about, my ability to get it done. Like, when you send me an email at 11 o'clock at night, I'm eager to get the work done. And I know that in order to do my best work, I need to rest. So it's untenable for me to have that turned around to you by 8 the next morning or whatever. Let's talk
Yes.
about, and then partnering with your boss to say, let's talk about, some boundaries around, requests or time that requests are sent out, or my ability to turn work around within certain parameters or whatever.
Yeah.
So trying to get clear about the emotions of it versus what is actually being done, and then to voice directly to the boss, not to triangulate, not to talk to the colleague and to the this and to the that. Like, go straight to the boss and
Yep.
say, here's what's happened, here's how I'm feeling about it, and let's partner together. Let's like use words that include you and the boss in trying to find that solution to whatever the challenge is.
Yeah. And I think, God, I'm seeing this as such a common theme for women. I don't know if it's generationally or, like you said, we're still in our same skin suit, but we're just different people now. Like, it is so hard for women to ask for what they need. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And so often we like stifle that and just keep working, whether it be with your partner or, in any relationship in your life, but especially at work. And then all of a sudden you are like, you've hit your tipping point. So it's so hard to strip those emotions away from it and not just come at them and be like, too much, or, so I love the idea of, stripping it down to what are the facts and approaching it from, why, like, having empathy for why they came to you, but also holding your boundary for what you need in order to do your job well and to feel good about it at the
Yes.
same time. But I think this is a practice for women across the board, whether you're in the corporate world or in any facet of life, where we're all having to learn how to people please less and ask for and tap into what we need more and ask for our own needs more. Which that makes me really
Yes.
sweaty.
And
I'm not going to lie. I'm not good at it, but
yeah.
I'm getting good at it.
Well,
And it takes tons
let's
of practice.
Yes, but let's make it so that it's not so intimidating. So this is an analogy I heard someone else use, and I love it, and I love using it. And that is like, if we were to walk into a deli and the choices are like 10 different types of meat and 15 types of bread and 3 types of mustard and all the things.
Yeah.
Most of us are going to have a couple of things that we know. Like, I want a turkey sandwich on sourdough with provolone. Hold the mustard, do the this, do the that, and we order the sandwich, and 99% of the time we get what we want. We get what we've ordered. We stood right there and told them what we need. And if we walk in and say, I don't know, I kind of just want some white meat on a roll and whatever, then we're going to get whatever. And we might get something that we don't want. So we do it in certain other lower stakes areas of our lives. We get really specific about what we want, and because we know that we deserve to have a lunch that's going to task good to us.
Yeah, we've paid for it.
We have, and we're paying for this with our lives. We're paying for our career with our time. We are exchanging our time and our precious, precious life for the opportunity to work in whatever environment that we're in. So let's get what we want, which also serves the company, right? I'm not saying it needs to be disruptive, but if you need communication in a different way or a different type of project, or you're looking to grow your career in X, but you keep getting assigned to Y, think of the deli and say, listen, I'm really looking to get more into, outside advertising. And yet you have me constantly doing like digital or, in whatever, print.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to be over here. Think of that and just think of like, how can I say this directly so that what I get out of it is more of what I want.
I love that. Are you like me and taking at least an hour to plan your meals every week and then to grocery shop on top, only to find out that I throw away half of it because I didn't have it in me to season and chop and prep night after night? It's so embarrassing and I feel awful about it. Are you also like me and worry about if any of the things I buy are healthy enough for me and the family? Well, let me tell you about Hungry Root. Hungry Root is my partner for healthy living. Hungry Root helps me save time, save money. I shop sustainably, and I eat what makes me feel my absolute best. Their mission is to make it easier for more people to eat healthy and feel great every day. Some of my very favorite aspects of Hungry Root are healthy meals in 10 minutes or less. I mean it. No chopping, no seasoning, ever. They do it all for you. Honestly, full stop. This is my very, very favorite thing. Every meal is so easy to put together. Often they have steamer bags for vegetables and all sorts of great microwave options too. They also give you healthy snacks and pantry supplies my kids and I both love. They're whole, trusted ingredients, which makes me feel like a great mom because I actually know that I'm putting good things in the pantry and in the fridge. Personalized recommendations based on your goals. Mine is heart healthy, and it ships to me on my schedule. The best part is also less food waste. No more throwing food out each week, which feels amazing. All you have to do is take their super simple quiz and share your preferences, goals, must-haves, and they'll recommend a plan for you and just fill your fridge with food you love. You could be like me and let them surprise you with meals each week, or you can go in and adjust each week before they actually send it to you. And let me tell you, they love your feedback. This is the one thing I actually do. I'll go in there and I'll tell them to send me more of a certain meal or less of a certain snack because we didn't really care for it. One simple click and your order is adjusted. Hungry Root is so much more than a meal kit. They send full-size groceries, which is so much better than pre-portioned package you get with your meal kits. Honestly, couldn't be happier. Use your code WriteYourOwnStory40 for 40% off your first delivery plus a free gift for life. Use code WriteYourOwnStory40 or just click the link in the show notes for 40% off your first delivery plus a free gift for life. 40% off is huge. The free gift for life promotion is a choice of free cookie dough for life, free veggies for life, or free protein for life. For life means the length of your subscription. Honestly, guys, I love Hungry Root so much. It saves my butt every single week, and I could not recommend it enough. Don't forget, use the code WriteYourOwnStory40 or just click the link in the show notes. Okay, so that is great advice for a boss who continues to push boundaries, especially. I mean, we see this all the time around time and things like that, because there are some people who just literally work around the clock. And that's their choice, but it doesn't have to be yours.
It doesn't have to be. And I think we are sometimes our own worst enemies with this. So I think there is an important conversation. I mean, ideally it's at the beginning of a working relationship, but if you're already, down the road with a boss, it's okay to call like a timeout and just be like, help me understand, what is your expectation when you email me at 11 o'clock at night? Because, maybe you're saying, and it depends on maybe your work environment or the relationship that you have, but like after 7, that's going to be my personal time. So if you email me after 11 and you're expecting me to answer after 11, I just want you to know that it's important for me to rest so I can come back the next day and do great work. And in order to do that, I have to turn my phone off at whatever time. So creating that boundary and understanding expectations. Sometimes it's a boss, like for me, we have schedule send. We do not have to send an email at 11 o'clock.
No,
you can
we
work
don't.
at 11 o'clock, but you can schedule the email to be sent the next morning.
Yes.
At the same time, we can turn our phones off unless there's an expectation like you're a doctor and you're on call and you need it.
Sure.
But a lot of times we're not saving babies. We are getting a report from A to B. It's okay to turn the phone off. So we also have to give ourselves permission to be off, to turn the screen off.
I feel like those emails coming in at these odd hours, especially with the expectation that you're going to read and respond, especially before your butt gets in the seat the next morning, that's like bringing your toddler to work and being like, I'm going to take care of this child while I'm here. And it's like, quit bringing my work into my family life.
Absolutely.
My life is multifaceted. And I think sometimes it is hard. I'm just going to say it, but like, I've had so many amazing female bosses, but one of the challenges, especially those that are from an older generation who have still taught me so much, and I value their experience in every way, shape, and form. But even if they are also mothers, because of the 20-year age gap or the 10-year age gap, they had to do it differently. They had to hide their family life. They had to work twice as hard, twice as fast, twice as smart to even just get a seat at the table. And I see that full stop. But it's hard. It's almost more challenging to have a conversation with a woman who's also a mother who just does it differently. And it's like, you have to be extra brave and extra confident in the value that you bring to the table to be able to show up and be like, hey, I fully respect how you do it. But in order for me to show up my best for you, I'm going to do it differently. Woo.
Right. And that word you said of brave is so true. And I would add to it, like, privilege to some extent. Like, we have to know, like, can we walk away? Like,
oh, sure.
Single parent, like, is my setting this boundary going to endanger my job?
Yeah.
And if it is, I would just say it's important to acknowledge that and to get yourself to healthier waters. Because if your boss can't take the boundary that you need to set for yourself and your family, yes, maybe you have to perform their way. But at the same time, I hope you have somebody doing a job search. I hope you're sending out resumes. I guess I just don't want women to believe that the corporate environment that they're in, if it's toxic, there are other ones that are healthier. You do not
Yes.
have to stay, even though you may have, your circumstances may mean you have to stay at this moment. You do
Yes.
not have to stay there forever.
God,
And you
that's
can
so good.
work on the side to get out of there
Yeah.
because you're worth it. You're
Yes,
worth
you are
it.
so worth it. And I think all the time when I think about these hard moments or conversations or whatever, I'm like, what would I want for my children? Would I want my
Yes.
daughter to be stuck in this role where someone is treating her so poorly and she's not fulfilled, but I know she has to get the job done because she's got to put food on the table? Like, what would I want for her? How do I lead by example? What do I want for my sons? Like, how do I lead by example? It's exhausting leading by example all the time, but like I find that when I have to dig deep to be brave, that is like a
Yeah.
really good motivator for me. Ugh.
100%. I always, that's great what you're saying about, kind of modeling it for your kids. And sometimes I
Mhm.
think about like if it's advocating for a raise or a promotion, like sometimes we have to borrow the courage for somebody else. It's like,
Oh,
it's
I
hard for
love
me to
that.
say, it's hard for me to say, I deserve this amount, but if I was saying it for so and so, like I could go in there. So sometimes, I've said, if you need to borrow that, like you can use the pronoun I, but you can speak about, think about that other person and have them on your shoulder as that's who you're advocating for, because
Oh,
it
yeah.
kind of doesn't matter what sort of mind twists it takes to do it. It's more about the self-respect of knowing that you're advocating for yourself and your boundaries,
Oh,
because no one else is going to do it for you. I mean,
no
you have
one's
to do it or people will take advantage
absolutely.
of people, when they don't set a boundary.
That is for life and for work. My goodness. Okay. So what
Yes.
about so I feel like, we've talked a lot about the mid-career moments where you need to probably set some more boundaries because, we've had this flexibility. There's honestly, as my kids get older, they need me more. I mean, it's less about
Yes.
keeping them alive and not choking on things and that, but now I'm like emotionally, they need me more as a driver for their activities that support the life that they want. They need me more, etc. So like, yes, I find that finding more flexibility at the mid-career level absolutely seems to be a common theme. And to your point, especially coming out of COVID, with the dabble
Yes.
of I can kind of mix of my life together as it literally exists and just be transparent about that.
Yes.
But what about these women who are like, yes, and I am ready to lean in because I have worked my ass off. I love what I do and I've got my eye on that C suite. What are some
Right.
of those women who just like want to, in this more complex, highly transparent landscape, how are we navigating those moments where it's like, yep, and I'm leaning in? What's our
And
advice?
well, the main thing that I would say is make sure you are networking. Make sure you are
Okay.
making networking a discipline, and it doesn't have to look like networking looked like in the 80s or 70s or 10s or aughts or whatever.
Yeah.
Make it work for you. I mean, some of my best networking experiences recently have been going on walks. I've played tennis. I have gone to speaking events. And
Cool.
if there's a speaker that's coming to town, like see if somebody wants to go with you. That's not just one of your girlfriends. See
Mm-hmm.
if you can bring somebody who's a little bit more on the fringes. It's the importance of the weak ties. This studies and research on this as over a half a century. We know that the most valuable connections in our network are not the people that we see every week or every 2 weeks. It's the people that we kind of barely know, who are the weaker ties, but who connect us to people who we don't know and opportunities we wouldn't otherwise be up for if we didn't have those connections. So make sure that you
Ooh.
are nurturing your network regularly. And whether you're a list person or a goal person, or if it's an intention, I'm an intention person
Yeah.
because life has a lot of gray areas. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really diligent about setting my intention. And when I see an opening, I make 5 calls. And when it's a day where those
Awesome.
calls can't be made, I don't make those calls. But I know that my intention is to consistently nurture my network. And that can be also online. It does not have to all be in person. I've had some great relationships that I've started and nurtured via some DMs and on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and on Instagram that have
Same.
turned into real life networking opportunities and $1,000 opportunities in terms of me as a self-employed person, all through just through conversations and showing up as a human. So
I
I
love
just
that.
don't think you can underscore it enough. And it's one more thing before you is just
Please.
introverts. Like, I'm an introvert.
Oh,
Please don't exclude yourself from or tell yourself that you are not capable of doing networking if you're on the shy side or if you need to re-energize by yourself. Like, you can make networking work for you. I'm not going to let any woman kind of like excuse her way out of networking. We can do it. We can make it fit within our lifestyle and all of our demands. I just think
oh,
if you're trying to get to the C-suite, that's important.
network. Okay. Are you a stay at home mom who has an idea you just can't stop thinking about, but worry that adding something for you will negatively impact your family? Are you a corporate mom who's got a passion for something and is desperate for more freedom and flexibility, or really anything in between? Are you in business? Maybe it's full time or a part time, but you're feeling stuck? Are you overwhelmed, or maybe it's exhaustion, or just genuinely don't know what to do next? Well, trust me, I know how you feel. I've been exactly where you are today. I've been the mom drowning in her corporate career. I've been the mom staying home, but secretly feeling like she's meant for something more. And I've been the mom terrified that her business will impact her family too much, which is exactly why I started the Female Founders Academy, because the world needs what you have to offer. Women deserve mentoring, clear, actionable guidance, resources, and a supportive community. And that's what Female Founders Academy is all about. After my 20-year marketing career at everywhere from McCann, New York to Deloitte and some amazing stops in between, I became a consultant and an entrepreneur once I had 4 kids, 4 and under. In the past 10 years, I've built both a nonprofit and an e-commerce business, and now I'm here with Write Your Own Story. The good news is I know exactly what it takes, and I'm here holding my hand out to help the women behind me live the life they're dreaming about. I'm literally obsessed with business, and absolutely nothing would make me happier than helping women live the life they dream about. That's exactly why I created this Keep It Real, inspiring course built to foster community full of very simple, sharp, tested, highly effective steps that get women feeling simplified, organized, confident, and clear on their business. It's a 5-week community course from October 2nd through 30th, meeting just once a week. Normally price is $9.97, but with early enrollment, you can get it for as little as $6.97, and there are only 20 seats available. We have weekly 1.5-hour interactive classes led by me where we walk through material together and work through it. I offer 30-minute one-on-one consulting sessions just with me so we can talk about your business and get your plan just right. You have access to the interactive Female Founders community of women. These women are amazing, and I love seeing you guys support each other. Not only that, but I want to make sure you keep going. We've got quarterly accountability check-ins so that we can all get together and celebrate what's working and what's not and keep each other moving. With this also comes a printable workbook, digital templates, and recorded trainings because, life happens and sometimes you miss a class. You also get early access and discounts to all future Female Founder Academy offers. Don't forget, only a 20 student limit because I want these women to genuinely get to know each other, support each other, and help each other grow. Visit writeyourownstory.co/Female Founders Academy or just click the link in the show notes to reserve your spot and secure your discount. Don't forget, ladies, the world needs what you have to offer, and I am 100% rooting for you. I can't wait to get started.
If you're trying to get to the C-suite, that's important.
Network. Okay. So what I love and how I help people in business is I like to sort of outline like loose, simple structures. So let's say I'm like, okay, like this is super inspiring. I'm like, I want to up my networking game. Or if you're sitting in the C-suite, what are like the buckets? And I love the point of like getting the people on the outward circle to kind of like, continue to grow those relationships because those are the connection points to continue to grow. What are like the buckets of people that we're thinking about? So like, let's do it for the girls who are trying to lean in at work. Are we networking with people in other departments? Are we networking with people in higher seats? Let's start there.
It is both lateral and vertical. So
Okay.
a lot of times people think, okay, if I'm going for the C-suite, I need to make sure that I am, being intentional about networking with all the, senior vice presidents or all the chiefs. And that's fine. That's good. And I'm not going to say you shouldn't do that. But if you're at a large corporation, it's also important to make sure you're networking with colleagues lateral to you in other divisions.
Okay.
Like if you're in manufacturing, you're in a manufacturing industry and you work in marketing, you may not think there's any reason for you to work, to network with R&D because you don't have any interest in going into R&D. But the person in R&D might be best friends with the person, who you actually need to speak with. So make sure that you are being broad and deep.
Yeah.
So one category I would say is yes, internal networking within your corporation is important.
I love that. And I think the more that you can go into these conversations, start with the the broad, because I think it, for someone who's sat in a higher role or for someone who's kind of worked their way up, it's like when you can go into those meetings with your SVPs or, people who are on the C-suite already and be like, I was just talking to so-and-so in R&D, and what I'm loving hearing about, like, and they see that you're invested in the company enough to go broad, how you can make the connection points into what are the objectives for the company, as well as how that informs your role or the value that you bring to the table. It just makes you a sharper knife in the toolbox, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Think of it like a web. I mean, like a spider's web. The spider who's going to catch more, food is going to have lots of spokes and lots of different directions. It's very different than a spider who builds like a triangle shaped, web that's just in one little area. Go ahead and stretch wide, and take some chances. You don't have to, cold call somebody.
Yeah.
But if it's like, somebody, let's just use the R&D example. There's, 100 people in the R&D division. Well, which of them went to the same college that you did? You can find that out in 5 minutes on LinkedIn and say, hey, we both went to University of Washington, can you believe the new head coach, whatever, do you want to grab coffee or whatever?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to make those connections, not so, hey, I want to get this job. You don't have to go in with your ask, just go in to network and build a relationship. The information of what you're really seeking, that will come.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And just like, I think that is one of the biggest things in corporate, is to remember that we are all humans still. And that, like, so to your point, when you reach out to talk to people, talk to them as a human. When you have that conversation with your boss, talk to them as a human. Stick to your facts. I love that advice, but talk to them as a human. Okay. I know we only have 5 minutes left, but I think I love that notion of just like broadening your web and thinking about the different buckets sort of in work and outside of work that are just either intrigue you, or could benefit sort of the trajectory that you're trying to get on. What are some of the common mindset shifts that you're seeing that women need to have in this sort of mid-career role? Or like, just what are the commonalities where you're like, girls, let's not forget?
Yeah, well, I think kind of something that we touched on earlier, and I just want to kind of reiterate it, is I think around this mid-career time, that voice inside of us starts speaking and getting louder about what it is that we want, or, this isn't right, or I don't have clarity around this. And we just oftentimes try to just push that down and keep going and be a good soldier and go in the direction that we had started our career in. And so I think it's an act of self-respect to hit the brakes and listen to that voice. And so that's why, we talk a lot. There's a lot of talk in society about authenticity. And I think it can be a lot of things. And the number one thing to me it means is listen to that little voice inside of you. And if you don't have somebody in your corner in your network who can help you hold space, there are people, in professional realms who can help you hold that space and take the time to listen to what it is that is coming up inside of you, because it will continue to get louder and louder. And I think the collateral damage of not listening to it gets bigger and bigger the longer you put it off. So make sure that you are listening to what's inside of you, what's coming up for you, so that you can bring the full force of all of your ideas and all of yourself to whatever role it is that you're playing.
I love that. It's like, I want people to put that on. One, that needs to be like a daily practice, but like carve time on your calendar to like take the half day and protect it with wild abandon and go for a walk and sit and listen and write about it and check in. And like, this is your life, your one shot. Make it count. Oh, that's such great advice. I like to end every conversation with just like, what are our wishes for women? Whether it be, I think the listening to ourselves, but what are you hoping and what are you intentional about? Maybe let's talk about the work that you're doing in your own life to lead by example for your children and to set the foundation for your hopes for the next generation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big question. I think I would say there's something important about kind of integrating, who we are and how we show up in our work, and integrating, how we show up as a human being in our other relationships, and how we show up as a parent. and as a part of our family. So I think if we can help our kids connect the dots between each of those, then they can see an integrated human. Like just as much as I'm not going to dump a work project on a subordinate at the last minute because that's disrespectful. I'm also not just going to, out of the blue, dump some sort of task, on a kid, in my family. And just as like, I don't want them to all of a sudden say like, Mom, where's my jersey for the game that's in 5 minutes? Like trying to show them how we integrate our values across the different spheres of our life, I think is a gift so that they can see one integrated human and how we try and sometimes fail, but try to live out those values in various spheres of our life. That's a hope that I have, is that we can be more integrated.
I love that. And I think having the values, your values as a person doesn't change, whether is a value as a mother, as a value as a friend, as a value as a daughter, as a value as a coworker. My values are my values. And I think when we get into people pleasing and shape shifting and shrinking, it's because we're ignoring that voice that you talked about and those values, and we're abandoning those in order to perform or fit in or whatever. And I think that is such a beautiful example for your kids to be like, those values, you need to know what they are and connect with them and try and bring them to the table in every way that you can. I think that's awesome.
Yes.
This has been such a great conversation. So if people want to hear more of your content, work with you, how do we find you?
Sure. So I'm on the web at anneshoemaker.com. That's ANNESHOEMAKER. Okay. And I am on LinkedIn. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. I hope that you'll reach out and include a note in your invitation if you want to connect. And I'm at Career Advisor Anne on Instagram.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this has just been so great. And I really, really appreciate perspective. And I think women in corporate, need all the support that they deserve, especially in this. I think the concept around this mid-career moment is absolutely fascinating and so relevant for so many women out there. So I so appreciate your time. And I really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
it's
you're
been
so
great
welcome.
Conversation.
Absolutely. I could go on and on and on. This is so fascinating. And I just have such passion for corporate. All right, you guys. So absolutely reach out to Anne on LinkedIn. Check out all of her free resources on her website. I was on it earlier this week, and I really loved your perspective. And I think a lot of the resources you have on there are just downloadable and instantly helpful. Or check her out on Instagram. And thank you again. And you guys, if this is, if you're a corporate person, download, save, share, however we can help other women in this community, because that is what this effort is all about, is empowering and helping other women. And the way we do that is by sharing these things and reaching out and supporting each other. So that's all I got, you guys. And thanks again. And thanks everyone for listening. And we will catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you? And just remember, I'm rooting for you, and you've totally got this.